Hello, everyone. We'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us for this informative webinar. My name is Frances Jingles, and I'm the Client Relationship Manager here at Caliber. First off, I'd like to start by introducing you to Michael Ward. He's one of our managing partners here, and he's going to introduce you to our presenter today, Cozy Whitman. So without any further ado, I'm turning it over to Michael.
Thank you, Frances. Thanks again for all you do to organize these webinars and record them. And most people don't realize all the work that she puts in behind the scenes to make sure that we can post these onto the website. And so that's such an important part of why we moved to Raymond James, was our ability to create a library of resources. And as the Chief Business Development Officer and partner here at Caliber, one of the things that was very important to us was to help people get fed in a different way. Yes, we want you to come into the office. Yes, we are working diligently right now to up our digital game, so to speak, but we also want to make sure that we can post things to a website, create what I've called the library of resources, so that people can come in when it's convenient and watch this again if they want to see it, or all of our other webinars that we have. So that's such an important thing for us. And so I do want to thank Cozy for being here. She has been, over the past year and a half, she's been an integral part of us as we look to flesh out our offering, as we look to really expand how we help people with expertise. That's really what Caliber is built on anyways. Many of you know that when we do something as an advisor, it's very rarely of our own knowledge alone. We have CPAs, attorneys that we have in-house, we have insurance specialists, we have Cozy, we have all these people that are able to give us better advice than we could give on our own. And that's the whole idea behind a fully functioning high-level team. And so again, it's just great to have her in the fold. We were really missing this area of planning, because college planning is difficult and people just don't know where to start. I know multiple times my parents said, as I was progressing through college and beyond, boy, I wish I would have known that earlier. And so there's such a need for this proactive type of advice. And so we're glad for that. Now, what we do and what we would do is take what Cozy works with you on and try to apply that to the balance. That's always the hard part. As the advisors, we have to balance retirement, current budget, home purchases, college, all these things together to try to make sure that we have the best balance. And that balance is different for every family. So that's why planning must be individualized. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Cozy Whitman, who's the Education and Partnership Manager at College Inside Track. And so again, thank you so much for taking the time to educate us and be a resource going forward.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me, Michael, and thanks to Frances. As Michael mentioned, my name is Cozy Whitman. I am with College Inside Track. We've been helping families navigate college search for 15 years. And maybe for the purposes of today's conversation, it would be helpful for you to also know that I'm a mom of 5. I have sat in your shoes. I was the mom up at 3 a.m. wondering how on earth I was going to pay for college for 5 kids. And so I learned a whole bunch along the way, and then joined the team of College Inside Track about 3 years ago. And my goal when I work with financial advisors is to really help bring the business of college to families, because families have a tendency to think about college with their heartstrings, right? And as you should. It's a cool experience. It's a life-changing experience for most families and most students, but there is a business side to it. So today, per the title of my presentation, I'm going to give you some insider tips, right? Some behind-the-scenes things that you should be thinking about as you approach college search. Now, today's tips are great tips for lots of families. They don't always hit every single family, though. And so if you are interested in having a more detailed conversation about your specific search, reach out to Michael, Frances, and the team, and we'll set up a time to have an individualized conversation with you about your search. All right, so let's chat college a little bit. I always use the analogy that college is a little like working on your own car. Back in the day, if you wanted to work on your car, it wasn't that big a deal, right? You pop the hood, and here's what you saw. The things that were under that hood are accessible. They were pretty simplistic. You could use regular old tools to get those out, right? My husband's redoing a 77 Toyota Land Cruiser, and when he pops the hood, this is what it looks like. However, today, when I have car problems with my car and I tell Paul, hey, I've got some issue with my car, he tells me to call the mechanic. And why does he say that? Because when you pop the hood of the car, it is much more complex today, right? The parts and pieces are crammed in there. They're hard to get to. You're not even sure what they are. And frankly, you need specialized tools to get it done. And college search is a lot like this. Back in the day, it was pretty straightforward. Often I meet with families and they're like, well, back in the day when I did this, yep, you're right. That is exactly right. Back in the day when you did this search, it was easier to do. But today, because colleges are not required to be transparent with you, the lack of transparency makes college search much more challenging for families to do. And so I want to start off by letting you know what a great college search actually looks like today. Today, when you launch a college search, you want to think about goals in 3 key areas. The first is the right academic fit for your student, then the right social fit or vibe for your student, and the final piece is the right financial fit for your family. And we're going to spend a lot of time on the financials today, but I want to make sure that you know that those other 2 segments are equally important. This is an equilateral triangle for a reason. That is because academic fit and social fit are just as important as financial fit. And so what I find when I chat college with families today is they've given some thought to academic and social fit, but when you start to approach the idea of what's your budget for school or what's your strategy for paying for school, they often will say, well, my advisors at Caliber Wealth have helped us set up a 529 plan, and that's awesome, but it's not a strategy unless you can afford to cash flow college from there. And so as we go through today, I'm going to help you understand how to better define that strategy. We'll spend a little time in the academic and social world as well. So let's start with a quiz. You can think to yourself kind of what answer you might go with. As a percentage, how much has tuition increased at the University of Kansas since 1987? I'm going to give you some options here. 107%, 215, 390, 641, or maybe you're thinking you need your T1 about now to get this math formula done. So I'm going to give you a second. Grab your number. Drum roll, please. University of Kansas has increased tuition 641% since 1987. And that is a very common range for the big flagship universities around the country. I live in the great state of Minnesota, and University of Minnesota has gone up 570%. University of Wisconsin has gone up 1,047%, and the University of Michigan has gone up 1,053%. In that same time frame. Those all make private colleges look like a relative bargain. Private schools have actually only gone up 415% in that same time frame. So I'm going to share with you my big list of schools, and I share these schools with you because when I get a chance to chat college with families, I'll ask the student, tell me some schools that might be interesting to you. And it's very common for one of the top 4 or 5 to pop into the conversation as a school of interest. And you can see the numbers there. I just want to point out that these numbers are cost of attendance, so this is all in. Room and board, books and fees, tuition, travel, and personal expenses. The 3 actually that I want to point out at the bottom there are the major flagship universities in their state: University of California, Berkeley, Mizzou, and University of Missouri, Kansas City, just giving you some options here. And you can see the price tags that go along with those. These are in-state tuition numbers. And what it means is really that college is now the second largest investment that your family is going to make next to your home. But sadly, families don't really think about it that way, right? When we think college and our students, here's what we're thinking about. The friends we met in college. We are thinking about all-nighters, right? Staying up all night and studying. The professors that connected us to our first internships or research opportunities. We are thinking about Saturday afternoon football games. All those things that make college a super cool experience. And I'm going to put those under the category of emoji with heart-shaped eyeballs. College, though, is a business. And colleges make business decisions when they accept students, and they are making a business decision when they give away grant and scholarship dollars to students. And so the colleges are working like a business. Families are over here with their heartstrings, right? So today what I want to do is try and bring those worlds a little bit closer together and help you start to think like the business that college is, so that you can understand how the colleges are thinking about it. All right, so I'm going to give you one more quiz here. Let's see how you do. What percentage of students transfer at least one time during their college career? And here's some options: 6%, 14%, 25%, 38%, 50%, or maybe you're thinking, I thought everybody transferred. Doesn't everybody transfer? All right, let me give you a second to grab your number. And drum roll, please. The national transfer rate is 38%. Here's why this matters. If your student transfers schools even one time, it adds about $14,000 to the cost of that degree. And if they would happen to transfer twice, it actually adds $24,000 to the cost of that college education. And I want to point out here, this is state school to state school. The second you add a private school to the mix, whether your student is leaving a private school or whether they're going into a private school, those numbers go up. So I want to stop here and let you know that we're going to jump into different kinds of aid available to families. And the thing I want to point out before I get too far into this conversation is when families are thinking about aid, they are often thinking about one kind. When I talk about aid, I am talking about the grant and scholarship money that colleges are bringing to the table for two categories. And what are those categories? The first, of course, is need-based aid. And this is often what people are thinking about when they think about financial aid. Need-based aid is based on all things related to the FAFSA, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But the second bucket of money is called merit aid. Merit aid is about all things amazing and wonderful about your kids. It has nothing to do with income and assets. And here's the cool thing. Some families watching this webinar are going to get the opportunity to pull out of both buckets. But every family watching this webinar will get the opportunity to take advantage of merit-based aid if you understand how it works. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time in need, and then we're going to spend a whole bunch of time on the merit side of the house. But maybe before I get too much further, Frances, I just want to stop quickly and see if we have any questions.
Actually, we don't yet, but I just want to let everyone know they have the opportunity to do that if they feel like it. So not right now, maybe later.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, please do drop your question into the Q&A box. You can find that. Most of us are Zoom experts by now, but if you haven't used Zoom before, maybe you've been using another platform. If you hover toward the bottom of your screen, you'll see the Q&A toolbar pop up. Just drop your question in there. I will stop periodically to answer your questions. I'm happy to do it. All right, so there are two forms potentially that your family will fill out to determine need. So we're going to start with need-based aid. The two forms are most common. Everybody knows one, right? It's called the FAFSA. The second form that you may bump into is a form called the CSS profile. The FAFSA and the CSS profile kick out a number called the expected family contribution, or your EFC. Here's what you need to know. One, your EFC is not what you will pay for college. Let me repeat that because everybody thinks this is true. Your expected family contribution off your FAFSA form is not what you will pay for college. The other thing you should know about your EFC is today, the outcome of your FAFSA will be roughly 47% of your net income. Net, right? So here's the deal. I don't know about you guys, but at my house, 50% of my income could not be going off to help my student pay for college. I had kids left behind, right? When the first one went off, we had 4 people still left at home thinking that I'm gonna feed them. So half my money could not be going off to college. I don't care what your household income is, 47% of it is a lot of cash. It's not realistic for most families. So what are the biggest influencers of the outcome of the FAFSA? The big numbers on this financial formula include your income as a parent, your assets as a parent, the number of kids that you have in college, and their income and assets. Which brings me to my first tip. If you have the potential to be need-based at some schools, you should assure that assets do not sit in your children's names. Now, here's the deal. I'm going to talk to you about the very narrow window of college, but Michael, Francis, and your team at Caliber Wealth have your long game plans in place, right? So they're thinking about your long game. We're thinking about this really narrow window. And so that's why we often work together with financial advisors to help them understand how families can really shift or evolve. But often there is nothing more to be done. It's just important to know that when you fill out your FAFSA, children's assets are actually assessed at 20% on the formula, but your assets as a parent are only assessed at 5.64%. So your money goes 4 times further if it sits in your name than if it's sitting in the children's names. Here's good news. 529 plans are actually considered a parent asset, even though you're going to use them for your kids. However, if you would have UGMA or UTMA accounts that you have money in for your kids, those actually count as the child's asset for the purposes of FAFSA. And there might be really good reasons why the money is sitting there. You just have to know that it has a bigger impact on your formula. Now, here's the deal. If the point of that money is to pay for school, though, and that's why it's sitting there, you should probably use that first, then tap your 529 plan. 2 big mistakes that we see that people make. About 42% of families make an error on their FAFSA that ends up costing them money. The 2 biggies are people put the value of their home, of your primary residence on there. Your primary residence is not an asset for the purposes of FAFSA. The other big mistake that we see that people make is they put the sum total of their retirement accounts on the FAFSA. You do not put your complete retirement package sum on the FAFSA. Retirement is not included as an asset on your FAFSA. All right, we are going to chat about merit-based aid. And here's what I want to help you understand. It is virtually impossible for you to move things around, right? Lots of people hyper-focus on need. And so they run to their advisor at Caliber Wealth. They're like, you guys need to move assets around, right? We want to make sure that we look more need-based. And here's the deal. You can almost never wiggle yourself into need. You will either be need-based or you will not, because the single biggest factor that contributes to the FAFSA is your income as parents, right? And so unless you plan to quit your job and become a pauper for the purposes of FAFSA, you can't really make yourself need-based. And so here's the deal. If your family is not going to be need-based, stop worrying about it. Don't think about it anymore. Instead, you're going to shift your strategy, and now you're going to think about merit-based aid, because merit aid is based on all things amazing and wonderful about your kids. It has nothing to do with income and assets. You can make $10 million a year and still get merit aid. And so sadly, people get really focused on need-based aid. They get all up in arms because they're not getting any need-based money. And here's the deal, you just have to shift your strategy. This is what we do when we work with clients, is help them understand where are your best pathways to bring grant and scholarship dollars to your student. So before I jump too deeply into merit aid, I'm just going to pause quickly and see if there are any questions. There are often FAFSA questions, and I'm happy to answer them.
Not yet.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Well, I'm going to keep going then because we got a lot to cover.
Okay.
So merit-based aid is actually all the things your students are doing to be super cool and have fun and take up all their time, right? So it's the more rigorous coursework they're doing. It's things like their activities, their sports, volunteering, working, all of those things pulled together to create students that colleges are interested in. And so let's start to dive in and help you understand how scholarships work. When parents talk about scholarship money, they are talking about something different than when I talk about scholarship money. When I'm talking about scholarships, I am focused on colleges. I am thinking about how is a school going to help a family get to their budget. When families are thinking about scholarships, they are thinking about private scholarships, right? So they are thinking about I have red hair and one blue eye scholarship, or I'm an Italian over 6 feet tall scholarship, right? They are thinking about those. Here's what I want you to understand about scholarship dollars. Scholarships go to smart searchers. And where do smart searchers start? They start with the colleges. Creating a college list that aligns well with who your student is and what they want to accomplish is the best way to find scholarship dollars. I'm going to go through some tiers here to help you understand where you should be looking for scholarship money. And we're going to start with the highest value, and we're going to whittle our way down to the lowest value. Understanding who your student is and then which schools will be looking for those cool qualities about your student is the best way to find scholarship dollars. The colleges bring money to the table in the tens of thousands of dollars. And when they grant your student a grant or scholarship, you get to keep it for 4 years. In the merit space, these classically last all 4 years. Tier 2 on this list, guess what? The scholarship dollars from the colleges again, right? So after your student's been accepted, they actually will get offers from the colleges that they have been accepted to for additional scholarship dollars. And should your student apply to those? 100% they should. So right fit college list, focused on the colleges that are going to bring better money to the table for your student. And then after they've been accepted, taking advantage of those additional opportunities at the college to get more money. Those are the best places for your family to find merit scholarships. The next tier, you'll notice now we're getting smaller, right? Because the tiers, as they get smaller, mean that the money is also getting smaller. And in this case, a lot of the local scholarships are one-shot deals. So when colleges grant scholarship dollars, they last typically for 4 years. When you get into this next tiering of these outside scholarships, these classically last a year and they are a lot smaller. And then the bottom of the barrel, but sadly where most families spend their time, is in the private scholarship space. Those are those ones I just mentioned, right? I read War and Peace, and here's 25,000 words on my thoughts about it, right? Lots of time and energy spent on these, endless Google searching, lots of essay creation to win $100, $200, and it lasts for a year. And most students don't ever bother to apply again. So what should you be looking for? You should look for schools who offer merit aid. How are you going to know they offer merit aid? Got to ask. They do not put this on their website. Excuse me. So you're going to have to reach out to the school, talk to admissions, just ask them, what percentage of students at your college get merit aid? And what's the average merit award amount? Where your student brings something interesting to the table. This is where I'm going to remind you that colleges are businesses. They are making a business choice when they admit your student because your student is helping them with things. And they are making a business choice when they give away cash because your student is helping the college with things the college cares about. We love to think that our kids are getting money because they're so awesome. And your kids are awesome, but that's not why they're getting money. They are getting money from the colleges because your student is helping them with things the colleges care about. So what do colleges care about? Well, they care about the numbers, right? Why do they care about the numbers? Because it helps them, right? Every college is tracking their average incoming GPA for the freshman class at their college and the average incoming ACT or SAT score. And that is true even if the school is test optional, which thousands and thousands of schools are right now because of the pandemic. But way pre-pandemic, more than 1,000 schools in the country were test optional. That does not mean that they don't look. Test optional does not mean test blind. And so behind the scenes, even if they are test optional, they are tying grant and scholarship dollars to those numbers, including the ACT and the SAT. So finding schools where your student comes in just above the school's incoming average. Extracurricular talents. Schools want to be well-rounded. They don't need well-rounded students. That's a little bit of a misnomer. They care that their college is well-rounded. And so they are looking for students that have different talents. Tuba players get more money than flutes. Friends of ours have an ultimate Frisbee player. He got $9,000 a year to play ultimate Frisbee at the school of his choice. And be demographically interesting. Here's a fun fact. 50% of kids go within 100 miles of their home to school. So I sit down, I check college with families every single day. One of the questions I always ask the student is, how far from home do you think you're comfortable? And you know what they tell me every time? Far. They want to go far. You know what happens when push comes to shove and we got to decide? They don't go far, right? 50% go within 100 miles. And I always joke that 49% of the other 50 go within 103 miles of their house. Classically, kids stay closer to home. So you're interesting if you're willing to pick yourself up and go a little bit further. All right, I am going to share a little behind the scenes of how one school gives away merit aid. And what I want to share with you about this college is it is a brand name school. So if I said the name of this school, you would know it. And these categories are very, very common. So as we walk through the categories, take note of them, pay less attention to the award amounts because of course that would vary school to school. At this school, something called demonstrated interest is worth $3,000. What on earth does that mean? What is demonstrated interest? It is a college's understanding that your student is pretty darn interested in coming there to school. And so don't be stealthy. Your student should be following them on Facebook. Your student should be following them on Instagram. You can just ask for more information, right? Click the button, send me more information. Are you going to be spammed to death? 100% you are. But you know what? If you want to send me $3,000 times 4 years, give me 12 grand to spam me, sure, go ahead. Here's the deal. In today's COVID environment, I also want you to know that participating in the virtual tours, participating in student panels for that college, all of that counts under the category of demonstrated interest. Look at this. At this school, if you live out of state, somewhere between $2,000 and $15,000 coming your way. So rarer students get more money. For every A on your student's transcript, $62. For every rigorous class your student did during high school, so these are the AP, IB, PSEO, any dual credit, $400 per class. And that is regardless of whether or not they actually give them credit, meaning it's taking away college credits, they still get that cash. Excellent letter of recommendation, $1,800. For every point above this school's average ACT score that your student is, they are giving them $425 per point. This is a test optional school. They were test optional pre-pandemic. So even though they're test optional, this is what I meant. Behind the scenes, they are still awarding money based on that test score. So let your student know that you saw this woman talk and she said you have to continue test prep. All right, just for filling out your FAFSA, $1,800, or your CSS profile, $2,500. So this is a CSS profile school. If you add those together, right, you've got $4,300 times 4 years just for filling out their forms. Now, here's the deal. I meet families all the time. They're like, we're not getting any need-based aid. I'm not going to fill out that dumb form. I don't know about you guys, but at my house, $17,000, well worth my time and energy. So I would fill out the forms. We recommend you fill out the forms. And for a well-written essay, up to $8,500. And here's the deal about an essay in our current environment. The essay becomes a much larger portion of acceptance processes in test optional schools. And so we don't let our kids that we work with kick this out over a weekend. We want them to really focus on that essay. We actually use some essay coaches to help them write a great college essay. A personal narrative is hard for high schoolers to write. All right, before I jump into my next tip, Frances, any questions yet?
Not yet.
Wow, peeps, you guys must know everything about college or I'm doing a crazy good job. And I don't think it's the latter. I'm just teasing. All right, so tip number 3, attack your search like the business decision it is, right? So here's the thing. With 38% of kids changing schools at least one time, what that really means is that people are not really assessing schools. You're making heartstrings decisions. And so I want you to start to flip this around. We spend a lot of time in college land like this. Oh, I hope they let my student in, right? I want you to start to think about it this way. Your students should be interviewing the schools and the programs to find out, how are you, college, going to help me be successful as a student at your school? And don't be afraid to do this. If your student has an understanding of what they might like to do, you could also ask to talk to professors. Understand that you have the ability to appeal your financial award at some colleges. Now, you can't do this everywhere. Public universities do not do this at all. But you do have the opportunity to go back to a school and say, hey, listen, we kind of got a better deal over here, but we want to go here. What do you think you can do? We did a ton of appeals lists last spring because the colleges were super nervous. This can happen every single year. So just know you have that option, but you have to have the right schools on the list. They have to be a merit school pretty much to get that done. Today, though, you can still do financial appeals. Maybe your income has changed in the last 2 years. You are able to take your current information back to the school and say, look, I know our FAFSA says this, but here's what reality is. If you want to better understand what that looks like, I would encourage you to reach out to Caliber Wealth and let's do a family consultation. We can dive into the weeds of your scenario. Find the style of school that aligns best with your students. we don't tend to think about, often when I talk to students, right, I'll ask them the vibey questions, right? Size of school, distance from home, those kinds of things, right? And they say like, I don't know, I don't think that stuff matters that much. Here's the deal, you are gonna live there for 4 years. You're not just a student on campus, you're a person on campus. And so it does matter. Might it be the only thing you make a decision on? No, of course not, right? But do not exclude that social piece or you will have a transferring student. All right, tip 4, assure you have a strategy to pay for college as mentioned. Big ol' blank spot when I talk to families. They just don't know. So have a 4-year plan and a budget. So think about your budget, think about where money is coming from for every single year of school, and then start to talk about it with your student. And this is a conversation we recommend that you have early in the process, right? End of freshman year, early sophomore year, good opportunities to start to talk about cost of college and what your family philosophy is. And then define the expectations for your student. Here's what we as parents plan to bring to the table, if anything. Here is what we expect of you as the student, right? And start to define those. And if you want better ideas on how to go about this, again, reach out to Caliber Wealth and we can set up a family consultation. I'm happy to help you have the conversation around how to start this. Questions, Francis?
We do. We have one. Yeah, okay. When do we start the search and what grade? And I have another question after this one. So,
yeah, very good. So we recommend actually that you start college search in spring of sophomore year. So now you might have a student who wants to do it sooner and that's fine. But a lot of freshmen are just learning high school, right? So that's too early. But during sophomore year, if you can start high level, just exposing your student to some campuses, you get to bite this off in little tiny pieces. This is the way I always describe it. If you start in spring of sophomore year, it's a marathon, right? You can pace yourself, you can walk the hills, you can stop for water at the water stops, right? You don't have to be always thinking about college. If you wait until later in junior year, and I am meeting with lots of families right now that have pulled their heads up and went, shoot, you know, senior year, right around the corner. Oh my gosh. And now it's a 50-meter dash. There are no water stops at the 50-meter dash, right? You don't get to walk, you just sprint. I don't want this to be a sprint for you. So start a little bit earlier, start with the exposing of campuses so your student can start to understand where they feel at home, and then junior year can be really focused on which schools might fit the bill then.
okay, one more question. Is life insurance considered an asset?
Cash value life insurance is not put on the FAFSA for the purposes of FAFSA. So you do not need to put that on. Good question. That was a great question. All right. My 5th tip for you, because of the world that we are currently living in, know how the pandemic is going to impact the college landscape. And this is going to be around for a little while, I think, right? So if you're paying attention to the news, you'll know that a couple of campuses have already brought students back. They started school. 5 days later, they are now 100% online. University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Notre Dame have all made that transition. It is impacting people's ability to really evaluate schools as well. So the campuses are closing to tours. Now, I will tell you this fall, the fall of 2020, schools will be open. Some of them are doing individualized tours. But if you are not comfortable going onto a college campus, or for instance, if it's a school that's further away and you're not comfortable flying there, there are some things you can do. There are great virtual tours. The colleges over the summer have gotten way better at the virtual tour thing. They are doing academic panels for certain majors. They're doing student panels. Do participate in those. It's such a great opportunity for you to ask questions. Don't be silent on those. Take advantage of them. And if you do that, you can find out things. Ask the student panel. Tell me about culture on campus. Ask admissions, tell me about culture on campus. Ask professors, tell me about culture on campus. And now you get this beautiful 360-degree view of the college culture. Testing is canceled, evolving. There are parts of the country where you cannot get a test even today. The fall test will not happen. I talked to a family in California a couple days ago. They can't get an ACT and their daughter does not have an ACT. So she is marching forward without an ACT. Pay attention to what's happening in your neck of the woods. There are additional dates that were added for September and October, but I will tell you candidly, a lot of those dates filled up instantly the second registration opened. And so it is challenging. Know that the opportunities may exist here to have your student continue to take the test through the fall, potentially through February. Some schools do allow a submission of an ACT score later in the process. So just ask your school what they are doing. Pay attention to application season. There's no question that dates will be changing. I saw an article yesterday, frankly, I work in this industry. The article made me dizzy. They have added early action deadlines, they've pulled away early decision, or they've added early decision and they've pulled away early action, or they've taken all of them away and they just have one date. So you're going to need to pay attention to what your individual schools on your students' lists are doing. This is going to be a moving target this fall, so just watch out for that. Yep, go ahead, Frances.
Okay, will there be more online colleges, only colleges in the years to come? Do they offer aid?
Yeah, so this is such a great question. I would like to shine up my crystal ball a little bit for you and try and understand this as well. I think there's no question that colleges have understood now that they need stronger presence online. We have, interestingly, as clients, we have some college professors, right, who are talking about the hours and hours they spent this summer figuring out how to be better online professors. There is also really interesting technology popping into place, right? Small company startups around the country that were doing cool things that are now getting some investors. Virtual reality companies for labs. So instead of being live at a lab, you're able to do it VR. So there's some interesting things coming down the pike. Will you get merit aid for those? I don't know, right? Here's the deal. Today, online classes cost exactly the same, if not more sometimes, than the in-person classes. And part of that is because colleges have not been supporting that online piece, right? So from a technological perspective, they've got to start to build the backbone that is going to really support the structure of online learning. And so will they get better at it? No question. Will they be able to provide multiple avenues for students? So some students are going to choose the online version at our university. Some students are going to use the live version and have that fuller experience. I think there is some creativity coming. I also think there is some reckoning coming for colleges, right? They have been able to, without any kind of pushback, continue to increase their pricing, right? We saw those triple and quadruple % increases over the last few years. And so the time is coming where people are actually physically pushing back on schools and saying, I'm not sending my student then. So they do have some decisions to make, there's no question. I wish I had a better answer for you today, more to come. My last tip, just in terms of the pandemic, there's no question, right, as the economy has taken a hit, our investments have taken a hit, and a 529 plan is an investment. And so if yours has potentially taken a hit, one of the things we're recommending that people take a look at is taking advantage of the federal student loan program. So the interest rates on the federal loan program align with what the Federal Reserve does with interest rates. And so as the Federal Reserve, in trying to help the economy along, has reduced interest rates, the federal student loans interest literally went from 4.5% in 2019, 2020, dropped to 4.75% for the 2020-2021 year. So do consider taking advantage. That federal student loan is the only loan your student can own by themselves. It does not require your parent co-signature. It does have historically the lowest rates in the market. And today it's at a historic low in terms of the loan itself. And so feel free, if you want to learn more about that, to reach out to Caliber and we can sit down and chat. So let me share just a little bit and then I'll take a last round of questions. What does College Inside Track do? We do help families navigate college search and application process. Our job is to make sure you find the right fit schools for your students so they do not become one of those 38%. We do want to make sure that you get the best pricing possible at the schools on your list, but this is my favorite thing that we do. We get to be a neutral party. We can say things to your kids because we're not you, right? So 4 of my 5 kids are girls. They have all mastered the eyeball roll, and I am never the smartest person in the room. And that includes, by the way, college conversations. I had an argument with my daughter the other day because she did not believe me about one school and its merit aid policy. So here's the deal. We can be that outside resource that says to your student, here's how it really works. So let's make sure you take advantage of the realities of college. So the last thing I want to offer, this is bar none my favorite thing that I do in my job. I do free consultations all the time. We're going to work with Caliber Wealth to get this done. But what are we going to do during our hour together? You're going to include your student, and we are going to get your questions answered around college search. As mentioned, these are great tips, but they don't fit every single family. And there are tons and tons more tips that I didn't share. And so I just want to learn a little bit more about you. And then what I'll weave in are some strategies that you guys can use for your goals. I can do an estimate of your expected family contribution so you can understand how the colleges will perceive you. And then I'll make suggestions, right? Are you going to be both need and merit-based, so follow these 2 paths, or just merit, and here's how to think about it. And so maybe before I dive into housekeeping, at the end here, I want to make sure that you go through Caliber Wealth to set this up. And so, Frances, do you want to let people know maybe how to go about that?
Yeah, what they can do is just email me, and I can give them your information if they email that information to me. And then also, you had an online survey. I will get the information of who attended this meeting or the webinar and send it out to them right afterwards. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So we do have a form that you are welcome to fill out. If you want to get a copy of this presentation, you are more than welcome to a copy of it. And so do watch for that email from Frances and fill out your Google form quickly. If you want to take advantage of that hour, just check the box that says reach out to me. We'll get that done. Maybe your student's too young, right? That's okay. We'll actually put you on a tickler to call you when it's age appropriate to talk to you. We do keep live real-time updates. So maybe you have a rising senior and you're like, holy buckets, I don't know how to keep track of all the moving parts and pieces this year. And so if you want to follow us on Facebook, please do that. And then that Google form gives you an opportunity. We send out a monthly newsletter. It follows the path of college search and gives you tips and tricks you should be thinking about as a family. So if you want to opt into that, feel free to check the box on that form that Frances is sending you. And then lastly, if you learn something new and you know somebody who has a high school student and they're like this, right, and they don't know what to do, please feel comfortable sharing my contact information with them because I'm happy to do a consultation for them as well. Do we have any final questions, Frances, before we wrap
No
up?
final questions. I guess this is the end. Is it okay for me to close?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. I just want to say thank you, Cozy, for all this good information, excellent information. I'm sure we got a lot out of it. Also, I just want to remind everybody that they can revisit this presentation. If they go out to our website, caliberkc.com, in a few weeks, it will be posted on there if they want to see the presentation all over again. And then I just want to say thank you for joining us today. We hope you found the information helpful and you guys have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks much, everybody.